Justified City Primeval is the sequel to FX's original series based on the late Elmore Leonard's novel, and once again starts Timothy Oliphant as U.S. Marshal Raylan Gibbons, who in the first episode travels from Miami to Detroit after his father-daughter vacation is sidelined by a couple of attempted carjackers that he unarms and takes to where they were originally living. In Detroit, we meet Judge Alvin Guy, played by the legendary Keith David, who is talking to his assistant and playing around with his new remote start feature for his car, seeing how, it's the 21st century and all that. And very quickly, things go wrong as the car blows up as he starts it and is simply knocked back, but this is clearly not something that just happens by accident. At the city courthouse, one of the carjackers' lawyers, Carolyn Wilder, played by Anjuane Ellis Taylor, attempts to remove the charges against her client by discrediting Raylan through the man's treatment on the way to Michigan, such as him and his friend being left in a hot car and friend to be put in the trunk. Adding to the problems is the marshal's daughter, Willa, who is watching videos on her phone and laughing while in the courthouse, causing Judge Guy to order for her to be put in the court holding cell, and later Raylan as well, who is also kind of back-talking him and annoying him, which isn't helped by, the judge almost being killed from a supposed car bombing, which wouldn't really put a shine on anyone's day, really. A bit later, they're all let out, and Raylan is forced to assist in a police raid on the house of a fugitive in Armada, Michigan, Barry Tenderbach, played by Ian Braschi. Raylan notices the door is unlocked and opens it, lightly disappointing the more aggressive local officer, Bill Downey. Through searching the house, they discover a secret hatch in the kitchen, and below it is a tunnel. Barry and his buddy see the light moving on the other side from Raylan and the other officers, and they both run towards the exit. The two of them get on dirt bikes and make it straight out of the general area of the house. Unfortunately, the buddy loses gas, and Barry has no choice but to leave him. Eventually, Raylan and the others catch up to this guy and get him to spill the beans on Barry's motivations for attempting to kill the judge. While reporting back to Judge Guy, they reveal to him that the main reason Barry wanted him dead was because he was apparently sleeping with his mother, which doesn't usually sit well for most guys. During all of this, we see the brief journey of a less than reputable man, Clement Mansell, played by Boyd Holbrook, who reunites with his girlfriend, Sandy Stanton, played by Adeline Clemens, and clearly has some not-so-good plans in mind while in Detroit. Meanwhile, Barry comes over to his mother's house for dinner. While they eat, his mother asks about the car bombing, and he is under the impression that what he did was right and that he dishonored their family by, of course, sleeping with his mother. Of course, his mother is not too happy, as Barry has apparently been messing with her relationships before, and sort of taunts him by, just saying that the judge was probably the best she ever had, in quotes. Barry soon hears the sounds of helicopters and sirens and realizes that his mother had sold him out to the police, and soon enough, Raylan and the others bust down the door, and quickly Barry reaches for a knife and holds his mother at knife point. Frantically, he makes it to the basement, tosses her, in there, and closes the door with him inside as well. Raylan is trying to convince him to, let himself get caught and no harm will be done and all that. And, there's a lot of back talk between Barry, his mother, and Raylan. And after a bit, Barry decides to, do what Raylan wants him to do, and he slowly opens the door, and they both slowly let down their weapons. But after a moment, via impatience, Downey kicks in the door, knocking the fugitive down the stairs and into a shelf, right down the basic line of the stairs. Now, Raylan, and more importantly the Detroit Police Department, have their man. Later at night, Raylan has dinner with Willa at a nice restaurant with a nice bar. He brings up possibly going on a trip to Graceland through, going to a couple of steak and shakes on the way. And Willa brings up possibly going to Raylan's old childhood home of Harlan, Kentucky, where the first series originally took place. Raylan doesn't really want to go there, considering it boring for someone her age, and just wants it to be dropped. Raylan sees Carolyn Wilder at the bar with her friend talking, and he ends up staring at her for a bit. Willa sees this and thinks that maybe he is attracted to her and could use some love, with him being split away from her mother for quite a while. She decides to go up to the bar and order the lawyer a drink for her dad. The drink ends up being a very ridiculous one in a tiki glass with sparklers, just sparkling basically. Of course, Raylan is very embarrassed and leaves the restaurant right then and there. At a casino/bar, we see Sandy working off the clock, serving cocktails, and later cheering on a man at the gambling table. The man wins, and she kisses him very passionately. And then we also see that Clement is watching them while playing poker, clearly kind of like a prey, or a predator looking for his prey. In a parking garage, Sandy and the man get into his expensive car and drive out, being followed by Clement in his own vehicle. While the two are almost out of the garage, Clement is cut off by Judge Guy, who is in his new car with his assistant. Because of the time wasted, he has to be quick to follow the nice car, but his progress is still impeded by the judge. Taking it a step further, Clement decides to bump into the car and chase them, being very upset and not taking, anything too lightly. The judge tries to get away, but it's too late, as Clement crashes into them and, after getting out of his car, shoots the judge dead right through his windshield. The assistant tries to run away, making it to a deserted golf course, but this ends up being futile, as she is shot down and then given one last shot to the face. Raylan is called onto the scene of the crime, where he asks questions that are vaguely answered, with little evidence being found on the culprit so far. Not too long after that, they find the assistant's body, with one of the other officers, Maureen Downey, lamenting that she was helping them by finding dirt on the judge, as the judge seemed to not be the most stand-up seeming guy, and also had some dirt on the police, as he seemingly threatened earlier. Raylan goes back to his hotel room, being sure not to wake Willa, and sits down in silence, upset that the vacation with her has gone to hell, now that he will not be leaving, having to help put a stop to the person behind these killings. In episode 2, we start in 2017, years before the present-day setting of 2023, where Clement shows up to a house where a man named Sweetie, played by Von D. Curtis Hall, hangs out with his buddies. After talking to them about reggae music, he robs them of all their money and weed, only to kill them all, but Sweetie, because he turned out to be helping him with, telling him where he was and other possible stuff. The latter drops the former off at a motel, while he goes on his own way for the meantime. After that point, Clement is arrested by the police, and Sweetie runs a bar in Detroit that we see in the first episode, where both the lawyer shows up and where Clement shows up briefly with his girlfriend to pick up a gun that he hid in the drop ceiling of a bathroom. This section then ends with a scene from the last episode where Sweeney gets a phone call at his bar that turns out to be from Clement, which implies that Clement has some business in mind that Sweetie is going to be a part of. In the morning, Raylan and Officer Robinson visit Sandy Stanton at her hotel looking for Clement, who is currently under the name Dell. They ask some questions about him, thinking it is important to the case, with Sandy, of course, lying about many details and where Clement is, with him being in the closet, waiting to, possibly put him down if he needs to. The two of them pretend to take the info well and leave. Afterward, Clement has Sandy take the gun used on the judge and get rid of it for him. Later in a parking garage, Sandy is going to her car, clearly going to find a place to get rid of the gun, and we see both Raylan and Robinson in their car waiting to see where she goes to possibly find any information about Clement or just anything related to the killings going on. She first goes to a bridge where she has the gun hidden under her zipped up coat, and she tries to throw the gun off the bridge, but sees that there's a lot of, cars moving by and thinks that there might be possible witnesses in the future, so she decides not to do that and goes elsewhere. Eventually she goes to the bar that Sweetie owns and puts the gun back in the drop ceiling where Clement had put it before, instead of, getting rid of it in any other way. Raylan and Robinson go to the bar and talk to Sweetie, trying to, get him to talk about Fanes and if he knew about Sandy. Of course, Sweetie doesn't say a thing and just tries to get them out of the way. And when they bring up a gun possibly being in the bar, he takes out a bunch of hidden guns behind the bar in certain places and, gives kind of a smirk, being like, is this what you're looking for? Robinson then tries to really talk to him, supposedly having known him, mentioning that he used to work for funk musician George Clinton and would have possibly, worked on his song Atomic Dog if he hadn't been arrested for drug possession, which was a somewhat humorous scene, at least if, well, it would still be humorous to you. It's just a little more so if you listen to George Clinton, I guess. Meanwhile, Willa leaves the hotel room despite Raylan's wishes and tries to take a nice look at the city. At one point, she tries to swindle a watch salesman who's selling fake Rolexes for like $40. She gets it down all the way to $7 and finally, at that point, gets a fake Rolex. But hey, I guess it looks nice. Later on, Raylan calls her and realizes that she's not at the hotel room just from simple deduction, I guess, and makes her, go back to the hotel room and wait for him while he's trying to really peg down this case. At the hotel, we see someone at the front desk, not Willa, but Clement, who is asking for Raylan Given's room, pretending to be his old friend. Quite a bit later, Raylan makes it back to his room, noticing Willa isn't there, and goes downstairs to find her sitting at the table at what I presume is the restaurant that the hotel, offers, sitting next to someone directly. This someone Raylan recognizes as Clemens, as he met him earlier when he was talking to his lawyer, who also turns out to have been Carol. Raylan doesn't sit down, of course, and tries to get Clement away from his daughter, even though she's, of course, confused as to why he's so tense and even hovering his hand over his firearm. Clement then tries to make some mildly veiled threats against Raylan, but it doesn't work, as Raylan quickly grabs him and escorts him out of the hotel via the front door, and the two have a little brief talk, and things go very poorly as Clement makes a veiled sexual remark about Willa, to which Raylan pushes him near a cab and then proceeds to beat the ever-living shit out of him, or at least not to the point of concussion or overall, face swelling. Plenty of blood, though. He then, of course, forces him to, walk away and tell him that he will kill him if he ever goes near Willa again. After that, we get a sort of almost POV shot from inside the hotel lobby, where Raylan turns to face the camera, seeing Willa, who is tearing up a bit, but the main reason we're not too sure about just yet. And that was the first 2 episodes of Justified City Primeval. So far, really good stuff. I loved the first Justified series and tried my best to get it all finished before this new show came out, and so far I'm not disappointed. Obviously it's pretty different from the original, with the tone slightly being a bit more serious than before. There was a little bit more of dark humor to the original, but Raylan still throws in his jokes here and there, and there are some other jokes from other characters. Of course, I did mention the George Clinton bit from earlier, which is a kind of taste of that. And there's a lot more blue than the original had, of course, though I'm sure that's meant to show some, artificial seriousness with how TV shows often do that, but also the contrast between the first show's Kentucky setting and this one's Detroit setting. So far, the acting is pretty serviceable. Timothy Olyphant, of course, is really great as Raylan Givens, and has really been a pretty good actor that I've just come across since, after his brief character role in The Mandalorian, and also, funny enough, his role as Agent 47 in a very terrible movie adaptation of the Hitman games that only some of you might know what I'm talking about. It wasn't a great movie, and he probably wasn't the best in that movie, but he tried. That's all I can say. He tried there. The show already kind of exudes a slow burn with, 2 50-minute episodes, really taking their time before getting to what will be the explosiveness of the main story with the rest of the season. But I don't usually mind slow burn stories like this, as long as the characters are really good and there's a lot of stuff to really grab my attention in the meantime. And I think the show so far does that. Even though he doesn't do an entire amount in these 2 episodes, Clement does, a decent job showing himself off as the new antagonist of the show, and I'm interested in seeing what else the show will do to make us hate this guy and make him an absolute threat, just like a lot of the other villains of the previous show's seasons. Overall, I'm happy with how this has started, and I'm also just very happy to see more Justified. But, that's just me. Let me know what you thought of this premiere if you've seen it. Otherwise, I hope you maybe were convinced to try this show out through my review, which would really, really please me, I will say. So, in terms of rating, I'm gonna give episode 1 a 7 out of 10. Pretty good start, I would say. And I'll give episode 2 an 8 out of 10. Just slightly better than the first, so that's why it's a different rating. Good stuff, though. I hope you enjoyed that first review for Justified City Primeval. Hope you also stay tuned for more reviews, and maybe check out some of my other videos like this one, and even subscribe if you're waiting for more of pretty much anyone. Other than that, I'll see you guys next time, and take good care.